another video. Today we're going to talk about fail-safes and why they are important. If you practice less lethal defense, you need to understand a fail-safe. You need to understand that the failure rate is not zero. It will never be zero no matter what you do. Think about the airline industry. They had accidents and crashes in the past, and then they changed their policy. They created a system of reporting where everyone was accountable. Everyone could stop the plane if there was a problem. And that really cleared a lot of things up. They put in these fail-safes to try to avoid issues. Now, I think if you've probably been following the news, you've heard about the recent issue with the door on the Boeing 737. That's been an issue, and that's one of the first things that we've had in a while, other than a few other issues with that particular model of plane. But the airline industry works on air pressure. They need to keep a pressurized cabin. It's really important if you're working with air pressure or if you're working with water pressure that you have valves that have fail-safes built into them. You need to have redundancy in your systems. Airplanes in particular have tons of redundancy and checks that have to be done, and that really makes a big difference. Same thing goes with boats and water. You need to have those systems in place. So with our less lethal defense, I'm going to be talking to you today about my launchers and my plan and what I do for less lethal defense, and how I always incorporate and pair a launcher with something else in order to have some redundancy and also to have a backup. But first I want to tell you a little story. In the community where we live in Florida, we live in a community that has these man-made lakes. And obviously if there's a hurricane that blows through, the lakes can fill up, and they're very close to the homes, as you can see. But what they've built in here, as you can see when I zoom in, there are black pipes, as you can see, sticking out of the water there. When the water level goes up, they're able to pull the water, and they're able to drain the water out through a pump and take that water and dump it into the Everglades. And so these are a safety security system. It's a fail-safe for the community to prevent flooding during a hurricane, but it also allows them to circulate the water. The water is always moving. It looks fresh. It looks clean. And this piping system is, as you can see here, it can be controlled remotely. It has the ability for someone in a remote location to control all these pumps. They're numbered, they're electrical, and they control the water levels. And I think that's really, really critical, obviously, for homeowners in the area to know that their home is going to be safe from flooding. If you're a less lethal defender, you also want to know that you're safe from leaks. And leaks are a big problem, and you just want to avoid them. So let's take a look. I want to talk a little bit more about this and go into a little more detail with my specific launchers and what to expect. So as far as redundancy goes, I think I would probably go with something and have the attitude that 2 is 1. So if I have only one tool, I'm probably going to be in bad trouble if it fails. I need a fail-safe. I need a second option, and that's where the idea of 2 equals 1 comes from. And if I was going to choose, I would pair them in something like, these are launchers that are CO2 powered, so I might want to have that paired with something that is not CO2 powered, maybe pepper spray, which is also air powered, but it's a sealed source here of air to project the aerosol, so that is more reliable in general than using CO2 cartridges. And then you could also have something that is completely independent of air, like having a tactical pin and having something like this if you really have to get down to it. Now, this could be replaced with a knife if you really want to go lethal, but if you're trying to stay in the less lethal realm, which is what I'm doing here, I think these are your great options. You got pepper balls and you got kinetic rounds, and you can have these 2 options. Sometimes I will actually pair these 2. I'll carry my Grimberg jewels and I'll have them loaded in here, or I'll have some aluminum balls in here, and I carry this one, and this is also exclusively for pepper balls, and LiveX pepper balls, and 5 of them. But I'll often only carry this at nighttime. This is really only useful at night, and I'll talk about that more, and we're going to do some nighttime testing very soon with the Life Light. I really like the Life Light. It is great for what it does. Don't expect more than that. This one, great option for high power, kinetic impact. These two make a nice pair. But if you're going out and you're doing EDC, I think having something like a TCP along with a pepper spray, and you could even have both of these at the same time. You can really carry three. So there are numerous options for having a fail-safe. Don't just rely on your launcher and the CO2, because CO2 cartridges, they're very stable unless they get punctured. But sometimes the CO2, the launcher itself can leak. You can have failures. One of the reasons why I like the twist to pierce, and I talked about this in a recent video, is that it is a very good fail-safe. This is not going to get accidentally engaged. It is just physically impossible for this to get twisted for an entire 180 degrees, maybe a little more. That just does not happen randomly in your pocket or in your holster. Whereas if it's set up for a bump, it doesn't take a lot of an accidental bump, such as in the TRP, to engage your CO2. Same thing with the Byrna. It doesn't take a lot to accidentally engage the trigger unless you are very rigorous, and as you should be, you should have your launcher in a holster, whether it's a TRP or a Byrna. But the thing about this is this actually is more reliable, has more of a fail-safe built in, because this requires a twist. And I think the twist is actually better for reliability in the short term. It may not necessarily be the best for engaging in that obviously a critical acute situation where you need to use one hand and you need to fire. But everything comes with pros and cons and advantages and disadvantages. So a lot to consider. I just wanted to make that point here. If it involves air, if it involves water, things leak. And that's just the reality of physical life. And we have to make specific adjustments in our preparedness in order to be ready for a leak, anticipate a leak, have backup plans. And just like in industry and in industrial applications, they have to take that into account and they have to develop a plan. We should do the same, have a portfolio of tools in which we can use that range from no air to air, and then maybe even to powder, and for firearms, which is I'm not showing here today. So that's all I got to say about that. I think that's hopefully a message that everyone can agree on. We need a backup if you're going to use less lethal defense. Everybody take care, and we'll see you in the next one.